The initial remark from Min as she crossed my threshold was, "Oh my goodness, the aroma here is so genuinely traditional." I offered a courteous grin and invited her inside. She gripped my son Carter's arm as if it were her anchor, her tone sugary enough to spoil the sweetener container. The meal was uncomplicated. I prepared steamed bosa fish, fragrant jasmine rice, and stir-fried snow peas, meals I'd made for Carter since his childhood. Min praised every mouthful. "So delicate," she remarked, "not oily as I had anticipated." Her parents, a rigid pair in costly attire, nodded, chuckled at every comment, and conversed in practiced English. The discussion leaped between property markets, Carter's profession, and the wedding timeline they were already advocating. I maintained the tea refills, the rice heated, and my expression serene until midway through the feast when Min inclined slightly toward her parents and shifted to Mandarin. "She hasn't a hint," she uttered, gaze darting my way. I mean, observe her, that swine-like countenance. Those paws, Queedy. How ancient is she? I'll wed the offspring, secure the permit, escape, 1 year maximum. Then I'll locate someone with genuine wealth. They snickered quietly. The mother patted her lips with her serviette and stated, "Just continue feigning appreciation for the cuisine. You're nearly there." I didn't react, merely lifted the rice vessel and softly offered it before her father. "Father." Then I cleared my throat and declared in the identical proficient Mandarin I'd employed in lecture halls for more than 3 decades. "Would you care for additional rice, sir, and inform your daughter I instructed this tongue before she even entered the world?" Every syllable she uttered I comprehended. "Hush, the variety that contracts a space." Min's complexion paled. Carter glanced between us, bewildered. Not the courteous variety, the sort that declares, "Now you comprehend." And still I presented dessert regardless. The plates from that evening remained draining on the stand. I haven't handled them, not due to nostalgia, but because whenever I glance at that rice container, I replay her words anew. That swine-faced lady won't suspect a thing. I've endured harsher labels, pupils who failed exams, guardians furious over marks, peers who believed permanent position implied dominance. I outlasted them all with identical instruments, lucidity, quietude, and a recollection that archives everything. I instructed Chinese writings at the institution for 32 years. I didn't merely teach dialect. I taught its foundations. I could declaim verses from the Tang era, cite Confucius, and elucidate expressions that don't convert neatly into English. I understood how phrases wound deeper when delivered with a beam. And that's precisely what Min executed. She enacted benevolence like a thoroughly practiced performance. Admiration for my charming, modest abode. Chuckles that never touched her eyes. Proposing to remove dishes, but never truly raising one. Carter didn't observe. He's intelligent, just not in this manner. He's always been affectionate, anxious to satisfy, reluctant to accept that anyone could deceive with such simplicity. He believes individuals like Min are uncommon. I know otherwise. When my spouse was living, he claimed I was excessively lenient. You grant folks the advantage of uncertainty, he'd state. One day someone's going to exploit that toward you. I used to chuckle, not because I opposed, but because I recognized the instant someone did, I'd be prepared. That's it. Now here I am, 66, solitary in the residence he constructed, with still retaining the fragrance of linseed over epochs. My fingers aren't as swift, but my intuitions are keener than ever. And Min, she confused that stillness for obliviousness. That was her error. Her error. Mine was assuming she merited the identical mercy I extended my pupils. Carter visited the following night. Solely him this occasion, no Min. He carried confections from that bistro he favors in the city center. The one with the scorched sugar topping that's overly saccharine for me, but I always feigned delight. He settled at the cooking area counter, his neckwear relaxed, his tone nonchalant. I recognized supper was uncomfortable. He started. But you truly startled Min. You didn't need to communicate that way. I interlocked my palms in my lap. I only replied after she slandered me in Mandarin directly before you. He chuckled mildly, like I was acting foolish. Mom, you likely misheard her. or perhaps misinterpreted the inflection. You're fatigued. You know Min's still adapting. She's under strain. A novel nation, a novel kin, I permitted him to conclude, allowed him to envelop it in gentle justifications. I didn't debate, but something within me chilled. Not from rage, but separation, like a drape descending behind the chest. I'd witnessed that expression in my pupils too, when they desired to accept something so intensely they'd obstruct anything that might endanger it. He wasn't safeguarding her. He was safeguarding the rendition of affection he'd already persuaded himself. There are matters Carter doesn't comprehend, not because I concealed them, but because I never forced him to observe. He doesn't realize I'm vending my matrimonial pendant, the sole ornament his father ever bestowed me to fund his first-year dormitory fee. He doesn't realize I accepted 3 evening sessions the term his grant expired. He doesn't realize I overlooked his father's ultimate inhalations because I was correcting Carter's postgraduate dissertation, too arrogant to request a postponement, too obstinate to allow him to falter. And Min, she'll never comprehend what it expenses to bestow someone all and still be perceived as nil. I contacted Mara the subsequent dawn. She had been one of my most brilliant learners, a subdued power of structure and perception. She now labored in migration enforcement, something she once declared she'd never pursue. But the globe redirects people in odd paths. She recalled me immediately. No civilities, no hesitation. We convened at a tiny eatery just beyond the green space, the type where no one inquires and everyone attends their own brew. I displayed her a picture of Min the commitment proclamation Carter had messaged me. Mara examined it, her digits drumming softly on the surface. Min Lee. Yes. She queried almost to herself. I'll investigate her. I didn't disclose her what I'd overheard. Not yet. I didn't require sympathy or fury. I required truths. 2 days afterward, I received the note. That's not her actual title. No elaboration. Just that single phrase, frigid and pristine. I perused it thrice. Then once more vocally. Not her actual title. I remained extremely motionless for an extended period. Then I activated the light, unveiled a new notepad, and commenced compiling a roster not of inquiries but of individuals. If she had falsified about her title, what else was untrue? I didn't know what scheme Min was executing, but I was going to master the regulations. The further I examined, the more elements disintegrated like a poorly sewn border. The demons, the ones who occupied my counter, beamed with top mouths and consumed my brew, possessed no documents, no permits, no locations in the region. I discovered them cataloged on a site for regional occasion performers. Ethnic household bundle, it stated. Perfect for rituals, society gatherings, migration snapshots. The commitment images Carter had proudly forwarded me were posed in a leased atelier in San Francisco. Identical bloom curve, identical illumination arrangement. I located in 4 additional example collections, digitally. I contrasted the drapes behind Min to a snapshot from a celebration site. Exact. Mara's second communication arrived later that week. Her true title is Shu Min, still lawfully wedded. Spouse dwells in Guangzhou. Submitted no separation. I gazed at those terms for an extended duration. Still wedded. Nind still wedded. And here she was in my cooking space, murmuring while she sliced greens, causing Carter to guffaw as she bungled with the rice steamer. A charming resident had delivered blooms, and Min had received them with a gratitude so authentic even I almost trusted her. She donned the falsehood like satin, smooth, impeccable gleaming in the proper illumination. I didn't challenge her. Not yet. I required to witness more. Not of her, but of Carter. Would he detect the joints he didn't? He discussed nuptial sites and permit documents about how he desired the ritual to incorporate both traditions. I attended. I beamed. I dispensed Java and captured psychological memoranda. Then, when they departed to acquire for seating markers, I positioned at my workstation and started outputting everything I possessed. Her pseudonym, the atelier lease voucher, the hiring bill for her guardians, the union certification from China. I organized it in a binder, then inserted it into the compartment beneath my deceased spouse's timepiece. I wasn't prepared to display Carter yet. I required the moment to be precise because when the veil ultimately descends, I desire to be the one grasping the beam. I expended the subsequent week gathering strands and interlacing them into something irrefutable. I marked every document paperwork from the Imitation Guardian's captures of their performer outlines, min atelier snapshots, and a duplicate of her true union permit. Then I executed one more contact. Sissy. Representative Chen answered on the second tone. We hadn't communicated in ages, but his tone was just as abrupt and firm as I recollected from my invited speech periods. I require prudence, I stated. But it's not merely individual. It's governmental. He didn't inquire why. He only uttered, forward what you possess. I'll initiate a dossier. It was completed. The mechanisms were operating. 2 days afterward, Carter phoned. Min's guardians are still in the area. He uttered they'd adore to encounter you anew. She believes perhaps you're soft to the... Ending toward her, I halted. Inform them I'll entertain supper anew this Friday. He sounded astonished, then appreciative. She'll be pleased. I think this signifies a great deal to her. I only assented, though he couldn't perceive it. That Friday, I arranged the counter just as I had previously. I utilized the identical platters, dispensed the identical brew, even positioned crease cloths in the identical lotus form Min had admired the initial occasion. She appeared with her guardians, still the identical performers, still the identical refined beams. She carried blooms this occasion. Orchids, gratitude for granting us another opportunity, she uttered gently, earnestly. I beamed. Naturally, it's crucial to comprehend each other completely. Carter radiated the way only offspring do when they accept everything as ultimately at harmony. Supper was enjoyable. They guffawed. I posed inquiries and they enacted their parts. But every term they voiced was already recorded, every beam already enclosed in my thoughts with a time mark. And when sweet was presented, I pardoned myself briefly, proceeding to the entrance just as beams drew into the path. Representative Chen emerged from the unmarked vehicle right on schedule. The instant I unlocked the entrance and assented, Representative Chen comprehended. No theatrics, no haste, just a subdued attendance behind me as I reverted to the counter where Min was still chuckling at something Carter had uttered. Her guardians imbibed their brew composed and vacant. I positioned beside my seat and cleared my throat softly. Would our visitors like to remain a bit extended? I inquired, placing down my cloth. I've requested someone else to accompany us. Before anyone could utter, Representative Chen advanced, serene, expert, as if he were arriving for his own feast. He positioned a small leather binder on the counter and unveiled it gradually. Miss Shu Min, he uttered his tone even. You are under scrutiny for migration deception. You are not under detention at this moment, but I do possess inquiries concerning your present persona and permit submission. Sona. The space solidified. Carter turned to me, lips separated but speechless. Min rose so rapidly her seat grated the ground. I don't comprehend what this is. Settle, Chen uttered, still mild. This doesn't have to deteriorate. Her gaze leaped toward the cooking area, then toward the entrance, in toward the entrance. Her beat was apparent in her throat. You framed me, she snarled at me. No, I uttered. You framed yourself. I just activated the illumination. Then she fled. It wasn't elegant. She thrust past Carter, who scarcely moved aside, and her supposed father pursued his poise, fracturing as he struggled with his coat. The mother remained positioned unusually motionless. She gazed down at the brew cup before her, then at Representative Chen, and offered a small, vanquished assent. I'll assist, she uttered. Carter hadn't shifted. His gaze pursued the entrance long after it banged. He gazed at me as if attempting to resolve a riddle he didn't know he'd been given. I didn't realize, he murmured. I know, I uttered. He collapsed into the seat across from mine, the one Min had occupied, and for the initial occasion in years, my offspring was hushed. 2 days elapsed before Carter phoned. I wasn't certain he would. The hush between us had a mass of its own, something neither of us desired to elevate first. When the telephone ultimately sounded, it was nearly midnight. His tone was diminutive, tattered at the borders. You could have informed me earlier. I inhaled deeply. I uttered. You selected not to attend. For an extended period, the only noise was his respiration. Then a subdued weep, the type he used to conceal as a lad when existence first started to disillusion him. I thought you were attempting to destroy what I possessed, he uttered. I didn't comprehend you were rescuing me. I know. He breathed out unsteadily. She's departed. They obtained her declaration. Representative Chen contacted me today. She confessed everything. Her union, the imitation guardians, all of it. He chuckled once acridly. I nearly wedded an unfamiliar. You didn't, I uttered. That's what counts. He didn't respond for a while, then gentler and gentler. Do you still confide in me? The inquiry pained more than it should have. Confide isn't something you forfeit in one day, I uttered. It just flexes. It requires duration to realign again. I don't merit that duration, he whispered, and acquire it. He arrived the subsequent night. His gaze were puffy, his palms agitated. He regretted more than once each occasion, softer than the previous. I didn't exonerate him, not entirely. I just dispensed him Java the way I always had, and allowed the noise of the boiler fill the gaps we didn't possess terms for. He surveyed the cooking space like he was viewing it for the initial occasion. You preserved everything identical, he uttered. Some elements don't require alteration, I responded. Aura instant, he beamed, weary, authentic. I'll correct this, he uttered. I assented not because I trusted him yet, but because trust sometimes commences there. The subsequent dawn, I discovered a memorandum he'd left on the surface folded beside an vacant mug. It uttered gratitude, Mom. And for the initial occasion since that night, I sensed the residents breathe out. The archive aroma, just as I recollected aged parchment dust and the faint hint of citrus-scented ground cleaner, the custodian preferred. I resumed my customary place behind the information counter, verifying returns and assisting the occasional disoriented secondary student locate their references on cutoff. Subdued labor, acquainted, secure. It was the initial location I had gone when Carter departed for university. And now, after all that had transpired, I found myself here anew on the opposite side of something fractured but not ruined. A youthful lady entered, perhaps 17 volumes stacked high in her limbs and shadowy rings under her gaze. She thanked me for aiding her locate a manuscript she'd thought was unavailable. As she turned to depart, she halted. You appear so composed, she uttered, like you already comprehend how the tale concludes. I beamed mildly. Sometimes it's not about comprehending how it concludes, I uttered. It's about comprehending when someone's deceiving in the midst of it. She appeared puzzled, then chuckled courteously and departed. I observed the entrance shut behind her. Then I positioned for a prolonged instant before unveiling the diary I'd carried from residence. My spouse had presented it to me years ago, its sheets still largely empty, but today the terms arrived readily. A parent's hearing never withdraws, I inscribed. We attend beyond terms, beyond inflections, beyond what they believe we can't grasp. I placed the stylus down and surveyed the space. Youngsters murmuring over illustrated volumes. A parent reciting vocally to his infant in gentle Spanish. A youthful pair disputing over the significance of a verse without realizing it had no solitary response. Comprehension isn't just about dialect, it's about attendance, about interpreting hushes and lateral peaks, about recognizing someone's motives before they utter a term. Min thought she was astute changing tongues, but proficiency isn't about syntax. It's about veracity, and the veracity always reveals itself if you delay sufficiently. I shut the diary, inserted it into my satchel, and rose to rearrange the wagon. That night, Carter rapped on the entrance holding 2 mugs of Java. The packet arrived on a Monday, dense, authoritative, imprinted with the Bureau of National Safety emblem. I didn't unveil it immediately. I positioned it on the surface, prepared a vessel of Java, and delayed until the boiler ceased whistling. Then I positioned, unfolded the missive, and perused each row gradually. Min's situation had been advanced. Deception, bogus papers, distortion of wedded condition. Her imminent union appeal had been rejected, her permit canceled. She was anticipating judgment in national tribunal. There was no reference of Carter, no fault, no doubt toward him, soliloquized. Just a subdued memorandum that he had retracted his pledge of assistance. The mechanism proceeded without him. I creased the missive tidily and inserted it back into its casing. That Sunday, like the two prior Carter appeared at midday with provisions in one palm and takeaway Java in the other. He rapped now, never presumed the entrance would be unlocked. There was a gentleness in him I hadn't observed in years. We prepared lunch collectively. Nothing extravagant. Rice gruel with ginger onions and preserved greens. He didn't attempt to occupy the hush. He posed inquiries instead about my youth, about how I encountered his father, about the verses I used to recite over supper when he was too youthful to comprehend them. I should have attended, he uttered as we completed our repast. I didn't desire to accept someone I cherished could deceive like that. I extended for his palm. You didn't falter. You confided. That's not frailty. But now you comprehend what to seek. After he departed, I cleansed the cooking space, polished down the surfaces, and placed a new boiler on the burner of Civentin. My palms didn't quiver anymore. There was no strain left to retain. I extracted my aged diary and turned to a new sheet. I inscribed one row, then emphasized it. Next occasion you introduce someone residence, ensure she isn't performing. Then I shut the volume, reclined in my seat, and allowed the quiet to resolve in like an aged companion